All right. This is Coast to Coast with NCS, Mason Rutledge, Chip Roper, giving you guys updates on what's going on in the network, talking about things that matter. So, Mason, let's just talk a little bit like what's the origin story of this podcast that we are now going to do apparently
Well, yeah,
monthly.
When I came and spoke at,
I haven't sent you my bill for that yet, though. So
no, I
don't know.
haven't.
Yeah,
That will change the
that may
dynamics of
change
the
monthly
regularity.
cadence.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, that's all good.
When I spoke at the Manhattan chapter, which is the first chapter I spoke at when I joined New Canaan Society. You're welcome.
March 17th.
Yeah, St. Patrick.
You're welcome.
St. Patrick.
You're welcome.
At the Democratic.
We let you come to Manhattan for your first speaking.
Do you know what that?
engagement.
Do you know what that place used to be called? It's like 3 West now. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's the
Democratic
Women's.
Women's.
No, it's the Republican Women's Club.
Oh, the Republican Women's Club.
They have a lot of vacancies in New York.
Why did they change it to 3 West? That wasn't
Why do you
captivating. Yeah. Okay. So
they want to rent it out. That's
yeah,
why.
right. To a bunch of dudes that are
Yeah.
going to be there on
Thursday
mornings.
Yeah.
And we interviewed after that, and we just had good what the French call esprit de corps. Is that French? It seems like it's French.
It is. Yeah.
And I took German and Spanish, Greek and Hebrew. I can't speak in English. I can't speak any of them. Missed out on the French. So after that, you said, "Hey, let's get together and record something, see how it goes." And then we did that. And it's like, well, that went good.
Yeah.
And then we got good feedback from people who listened to it and said, "I like hearing from you guys."
All three of the people that listen to it, like our wives and then your cousin.
Well, yeah, but my cousin was with my wife at the time, so it only counts as 2 listens. But it's 3 total people. And when you could do 33% over, anyway, it was good. And so let's do it again and see what we do. And and people do wonder about New Canaan Society out there. People that are in the movement, what's going on, what's happening, and this is a place I could direct them to go. So that's how it started.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we are shooting for once a month. And guys, I think we would be open to topics. Like guys could suggest topics to us, right? Like
Right.
because that'll help us shape it and make it useful. But I want to talk about the terrible first name that you proposed for this.
I don't know why it was terrible.
Well,
Because
we'll let our listeners decide.
okay. They can vote. Well, let's do a poll. Can you do a poll on the?
Yeah, we could put a poll in the show notes.
Okay, there's a poll in the show notes for this very thing. I thought bi-coastal because you're on one coast, I'm on another coast. I'm on the left coast, you're on the right coast. East Coast, West Coast, bi-coastal.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
No, you didn't like that.
Like I'm going to come up with 3 reasons why I didn't like it. First of all, it starts with the word bi.
Which I think is just funny.
I just think
it's funny.
That's risky. Like, what are we doing that
Risky.
for?
I know, it's funny.
And then, like, you have bi-coastal, which implies like there's nothing in between.
yeah, because
And we're coastal elites, and we're just, you
Right.
know, we're just cutting out all our brothers in flyover country.
those
I mean,
wonderful people
I
in
mean,
Grosse
in the
Pointe.
beautiful heartline,
Yeah, that's right.
heartland, you know, Chicago, Texas,
Fort Wayne.
yeah, like we just
You're right. You're right.
we just coastal elite snob them.
Yeah. But what's the third reason? I've heard those 2 before.
I sort of baked 2 reasons into the.
That's true.
The
Yeah,
third,
I see. I see.
so-
Yeah, that we're flying over and we're ignoring all in
yeah,
one.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's the coastal elite thing, which if anybody gets to know either of us knows that we really can't live up to the elite side. Like we live on the coast, but we're not really elite.
Well, you live in New York. I think it's easier to be coastal elite from the east side than to live in Seattle. I mean, the LA people are certainly elitists, and San Francisco folks can be that way. Not the good New Canaan Society people.
But you're kind of being elitist about not being elitist. It sounds like. to
I
me.
am pretty elitist about not being elitist. I'm anti-elitist.
Right.
So
So-
then we've come up with the name,
Yeah. So
Coast to Coast with New Canaan Society.
yes.
So which is funny because we are on other coasts, including the Indian Ocean, I think, with Rwanda and Uganda. Are they on the coast?
You obviously flunked geography.
I didn't take geometry.
Geography.
Oh, sorry, geography.
Yeah. No, it's in the. It's
It's-
East Africa. Uganda's landlocked.
You're right.
It's
I
on
know
Lake
Uganda.
Victoria.
Yes.
It's on Lake Victoria, but it's not. Yeah.
All my time in East Africa, seriously, has been Kenya, Tanzania, Zanzibar. Not been to Uganda, but I will shortly. I hope to.
Yeah. We should do a field trip there.
So now, if
Anyway, we're still going to call it Coast to Coast with NCS.
Yeah, and if you like the content, you should subscribe. As the kids say, smash the subscribe button. Have you heard that before?
No.
Okay. And you should wear out your subscribe button because we'll be on the YouTube, we'll be on some other platforms. And then also, if you want to give us a review, a positive review, please do so.
We don't want bad reviews.
No, those are easy. Give us the good reviews. And any 5-star review, I've told Chip that we'll read it, and he didn't buy it. He's like, you can read it to me, but as you're going to sleep. But I think people, I'd like to hear what people have to say good about what we're doing.
Yeah, I guess I would.
Say we get one. Say one comes through. Wouldn't you want it to be read?
Yes.
I guess
I would.
As the words are coming out of my mouth, I'm like, well, what is it? What if we don't get one?
You just shamed me. I didn't know we trafficked in shame in NCS, but you shamed me into it. I agree now.
And I'm going to go back to my cousin to make sure she does a 5-star review for us.
Yeah.
So we get one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Awesome.
Good. Well, what's been happening? You've, just give us some highlights. You're officially almost 2 months in now.
Yeah. May, I don't think I told you this. May, I finished with 20,003 flying miles. That's how much I flew in May. And it went really well. I didn't have any, it went well. Praise the Lord.
How many chapters did you visit? Do you know?
A lot. I mean, I didn't.
A lot is not a number.
I know it's not. You're back to the math. I think it's over 30 probably, but it'd be chapter meetings and leadership teams. The thing about hitting chapter meetings is just so many of them are on Thursday and Fridays.
Yeah.
Like even this week, Manhattan had a dinner on Tuesday night. I would have loved to have been there, but there was a dinner up in New Haven I had already scheduled. Friday, I'd love to be at the Bergen County chapter, but you know what? I'm going to be in New Haven again for their chapter meeting. So it's hard to get around. But I'm still traveling. June, though, has been much quieter. I've only done a couple trips, and it's been nice because the thing about this job is there's actually a job to do on the leadership administrative side, if you will, or the operations leadership. And I just didn't have any time for that in May. So I've been able to do a lot more of that over the course of the month of June and getting into July. It's been good.
What are you seeing? Like what? Yeah. What are you seeing?
Well, I wrote about this in an email recently, and I can't remember who I sent it to, but there's these guys in process in our chapters that are interesting because if somebody asked a New Canaan Society member what is New Canaan Society, they'd say, it's a men's Christian group or a group of Christian men or something like that. Probably, just out there. Well, as I meet with folks, I run into people, and we actually have people that are in process. They want to call themselves Christian or churchgoers or follower of Jesus. They're figuring stuff out still. And I talked about this a little bit previously, but there's one story of a man I met, and I'm gonna keep it pretty vanilla so that you keep it private. It should be private. And
you're going to anonymize it.
Thank you. Not monetize it.
That's an East Coast elite word.
That is a couple state college guys talking, a ram and a cougar talking about this stuff.
Yeah, we're not qualified.
No. So anyway, I'm talking to this guy before a chapter meeting. He's a very successful man and maybe retired, somewhat retired. He's been coming to New Canaan for quite a while. And I'm talking to him about the New Canaan experience and how he got involved and where he's at now. And his daughter had some very severe issues in her life around drugs, relationships, abuse, etc. It wasn't good. And
multi-dimensional train wreck
all around.
Yeah.
And
must have broken his heart.
Right. Yeah. As a loving dad, it was brutal. And he didn't know Christ, didn't go to church, had no framework for any kind of faith stuff in this at all. But his daughter found recovery through a faith-based organization. I don't know if it was Celebrate Recovery or if she found Christ through AA, but somehow she would attribute her new sobriety through Jesus. Mm-hmm. Jesus brought her to sobriety and surrendering to Jesus. Jesus is her higher power. And she's been really clear about that with her dad. And so I'm talking to him about, he's telling me this story about his daughter and he's near tears, I
would think.
Yeah. And this is a put together dude. I'm not expecting him to look sharp, dress sharp, and
You're not expecting him to look sharp?
I'm not expecting him to cry.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Because
Thank you.
he
Good
did look
clarity.
sharp.
He did look sharp.
He looked sharp.
Looked
He
sharp.
looked together.
But as he's talking to me, I realize he's not as together as he looks.
Yeah.
And he's been through this. And we're waiting. And again, we're waiting for a New Canaan Society chapter meeting to start. And he says, I said, so why do you come to New Canaan Society? He goes, because I experienced a miracle. And I said, what's the miracle? And he explains about his daughter and all that she's been through. And I said, that is a miracle. And he goes, yeah, it's a miracle of Jesus that this thing happened. And I said, so you go to church, you're a Christian, you're a follower of Jesus? He goes, no, I don't go to church. I don't follow Jesus. I'm just trying to figure this stuff out. And I said, well, tell me more. What does that mean to you? And he goes, well, these guys are understanding. They're my peers. And they're open to these discussions. They don't judge me for where I've been or where my daughter's been. They don't judge me that I wouldn't call myself a Christian. He doesn't really know what that means. But yet they let me have these conversations and they let me engage in this exploration of who Jesus is. And he said to me, and I've got no place else to do that. Where am I to go? I don't, he goes, I don't have a church to go to. It's not, I didn't grow up in a church. I don't know a church. My wife doesn't go to a church. We don't have a church. I don't have any religious relatives. My golf club buddies are not religious at all unless their, drive goes far right. Then all of a sudden they get religious or they need to make a putt. And I'm exploring that with these guys, and it was a special moment. It was kind of this. I'd never met this guy before. I didn't know him. I don't think somebody introduced us. I don't even think he even knew who I was. We're just two guys chatting, and he shares what's going on. It was a beautiful moment. I pray for prodigals. That's one of the things I like to do. This morning I spent some time praying for I won't say names, but a couple prodigal kids. And I'm glad I don't have to pray for this daughter. She's not a prodigal.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. It's funny. Her dad's the prodigal. It's like the reverse story. She's by the way,
kind of, but he's circling the pond.
He's circling the pond, and she's not able to help him. She's the daughter, and her faith is very, experiential. It's touch.
No, he needs a safe place to process this with peers.
Yeah,
and people he looks up to.
Right, and I've ran. That you could say, well, that's a one-off. There's another story that I think I talked about in the last episode of a similar thing.
You're too young to be repeating stories.
I know, but this is a different. I'm just saying, I just touched on this other person I met, who's not. He's just in a place where he doesn't know Jesus. He says he doesn't know Jesus. He's not a Christian. Doesn't go to church, and yet he's coming to New Canaan Society. If you remember, it's the guy I said he comes to New Canaan Society because he likes Jordan Peterson and we like Jordan Peterson. And I'm like, well, it's more than that. So there's just these guys out there.
Do we have an official Jordan Peterson policy?
We do not have an official Jordan Peterson policy. Yeah, right. Although I keep running into it. Anyway, it's interesting to see the breadth, or the portfolio of experiences that are in a New Canaan chapter, from a guy that's a longtime elder at a Presbyterian church, generational, to a guy that doesn't even know what Presbyterian means. And we've got the gamut.
But they're still finding, no matter where they are in that spectrum, they're still finding something here that they don't find other places. In our energy group, we wander all over in terms of what we're talking about. We meet every week virtually, and then we get together in person once a year. And we see each other in different places, but all of us get together once a year. Anyway, we just were listening to a podcast by a pastor who left being a pastor, and almost 5 years after he was a pastor, he comes out and says, the reason I left is because I had an addiction. And I couldn't tell anybody about it.
Sure.
I mean, my wife figured it out, and he had to tell his wife, but he couldn't tell anybody. But
right.
He didn't have any friends to talk to about it. And it's like, it wasn't really probably his point in making his podcast, but our takeaway was but that's what NCS is. We
Right.
have a place where we can
Right.
talk about it.
Yeah.
And it fills it's a piece of the puzzle of the broader, I would say, the broader kingdom of God, or what God's doing in the world. Like this is a space where it's okay to not be okay, where you can deal with your brokenness, you can bring it to the table, whether that's a habit or a struggle or an addiction, or it's spiritual questions or doubts or whatever. There's like I don't know, there's like an elasticity to our community that's unique. No. So anyway, so we've had several interruptions. I couldn't even say interruption. I interrupted saying the word interruption.
Well, I can't remember where I left off. That's the problem. I was talking about Patterson, but I think we were done there. I mean, we hit it.
We're just talking about, like, it's a unique space of transformation.
Yes.
And it's also this kind of crazy impact multiple for the amount of time and money you need to put in to actually see God transform men. It's
Right.
It still requires an investment, but compared to other things, it's high density.
When I was a C3 Leaders, we did a study on the ripple effect of a failing business leader or C-suite person.
Cheery. Sounds like a cheery study.
It was how many people would that impact? And the average number was, or mean, whatever it be, 1,407.
Wow.
1,400 people. Now that's. I mean, and this is why Chip Roper needs to be successful, because if you stumble or fall, the impact is you think, wow, my kids, my wife, couple business partners. No, it's massive, because it'll be
hundreds or thousands.
Yeah, it's way like there are people that'll have 6,000 downline reports or something, and that ups the numbers. But still, it's a lot of people, and so we need the men in our community to remain upright, godly, pursuing relationships, and not stumbling. Because when they stumble, it does have an effect, and we don't want them stumbling.
At the end of our meetings, we say it works if you work. Keep it coming back. It works if you work it,
Yes.
which is an AA thing.
It is.
And but I think of that. I think of it as it really does work if you work it.
It does.
It's like one of the most important things many of us will do in our lives. I mean, if you're married, that's a really important thing. If you have kids, grandkids, that's a really important thing.
Right.
But one of them, and our work, our vocations, is a very important thing. But one of the most important things we do may be creating this space, being part of a leadership team, part of even a regular tender that invites other guys. Like, it's really, really transformative thing to do with your life.
Right.
Is to invest in your brothers.
You may say there's nothing more important than your relationship with Jesus Christ.
You may.
Yeah, you may.
Yeah, actually, you say that.
I do say that.
I agree with that. I
think
totally
this is
agree
part of
with
it.
it. I think it spills out, though, in these.
Yes.
Like, that's the center of
It
the
is.
wheel
Yeah.
in my mind, and then it spins out in these. How do you live it out?
But if you don't have that as a center of your wheel, like even if New Canaan society becomes the center of your wheel, you're going to fail.
It can't sustain it.
You got to have Jesus
I
at the
totally
center.
agree with that.
And we, we want to replace stuff all the time in that regard. It's a temptation that the devil puts before us, unfortunately.
So Jesus in the center, and tons of impact flowing from that.
And subscribe to the podcast.
And subscribe to the podcast.
Keep coming back. Keep coming back. It works if you work it.
You're worth it.
So work it.
So work it.
Yeah,
Something
there it is.
like that. All right.
Thanks, Chip. It's good to be together
Thank you,
again.
Mason.
Peace.
Cheers.